Life has a way of teaching us profound lessons, sometimes through the most unexpected moments. In today's story, we follow the journey of a woman who spent years sacrificing for her family, only to realize the importance of her own happiness and independence. This is a tale of self-discovery, betrayal, and the courage to rebuild a life from the ashes of the past. If you're ready to hear how one woman turned her pain into empowerment, make sure to subscribe to our channel and start today's story with life stories. For over a decade, I had been the one tending to Mark's mother, Helen. She wasn't just old, she was bedridden, her health deteriorating day by day. I cleaned up after her, helped her with even the most basic needs, massaged her tired legs, and turned her in bed. It was a constant cycle of care, one that demanded every ounce of my energy. But I did it willingly. Because she was family, I sacrificed my time, my own happiness, and my social life to ensure she was comfortable. It was a decision I made in the beginning, out of love, out of duty, and I had never once questioned it. It wasn't until she passed away that I finally had a moment to breathe. The weight of caring for her for so many years left me drained. In the quiet that followed her death, I found a space I hadn't known in a long time, a space where I could finally think clearly. And that's when Mark suggested a family road trip. I should have been thrilled. A chance to relax, to reconnect with the family. I threw myself into preparations, eager to leave everything behind, even if just for a short while. The morning we were supposed to leave arrived, and I was ready. I had packed everything, snacks for the road, clothes for all occasions, games to keep the kids entertained. I stood by the door, suitcase in hand, waiting for the moment when we would finally drive off. But just as we were about to leave, Mark stopped me at the door. His voice was cold, detached. "There's no room in the car. You can go next time," he said. I stood frozen, a wave of confusion washing over me. Beside him, our son, Ryan, chimed in. "Mom, you're not young anymore. It's a long ride, and you'll just complain about your back hurting again." Our daughter, Lily, walked past me without a word and got into the car. And just like that, they left. The family I had dedicated my life to, the people I had cared for, they all left without a second thought. I stood there, alone, feeling the sting of their indifference. The door closed behind me with a finality I couldn't escape. The next day, Mark posted a picture on social media. In the photo, he was smiling broadly, surrounded by Ryan and Lily. But there was someone else too. A woman, a close friend of his. Sophia. I recognized her immediately. They had all gone on the trip without me. And there she was, looking so happy, so at ease, standing right next to them. I couldn't help but feel the betrayal coursing through me. For years, I had stayed behind, caring for his bedridden mother, while Mark traveled across the country with her. And now, I saw it in black and white. The truth was laid bare in front of me. I stared at the photo for a long time, adjusting my glasses to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Mark, Ryan, and Lily, they looked so happy. I felt a sudden, sharp memory flood my mind. One from 2 years ago during Thanksgiving. I had wanted to take a family photo, a simple snapshot of us together on the couch. But they had refused. Too much hassle, they had said. Let's do it next time. Nobody takes cheesy family portraits anymore. It hurt then, but now, in the light of what I had just discovered, it felt like a cruel joke. They hadn't wanted to take a picture with me, not because it was too much trouble, but because they had long since gathered around Sophia, taking countless photos without me. I felt my chest tighten with the realization. It wasn't just the pictures. It was everything. All those years, I had been there, doing everything for them, and yet, they had built lives that didn't include me. Mark had always called Sophia his kindred spirit, but I had never imagined that it would come to this. That he would choose her over me, over his own family. I could feel my hands trembling as I clutched my phone, still staring at the photos. The years of sacrifice, the endless chores, the love I had given, none of it seemed to matter. I took a deep breath and turned away from the balcony. I stepped into the house. But it felt empty. The rooms were the same. Yet today, they seemed unbearably hollow. The silence was deafening. I wandered aimlessly, lost in a sea of memories. None of it had changed. But everything had shifted. For all these years, I had been the one holding the family together. The one who had sacrificed her own dreams, her own desires, to care for everyone else. And now, as I stood in the middle of the house we had built together, I realized just how invisible I had become. The days after the family trip passed slowly. I tried to fill the emptiness with tasks. As I always had, cleaning, organizing, keeping myself busy. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the overwhelming sense of betrayal. Every corner of the house felt like a reminder of my years of sacrifice. My eyes would fall on something. A framed picture of us on our wedding day. A trinket Mark had once given me, and the memories that once felt warm now seemed cold. Hollow. It was when I saw that photo of Mark, Ryan, and Lily with Sophia that something inside me snapped. How had I gotten here? How had I become the person who did everything for everyone else but never asked for anything in return? All those years of caring for his mother, of putting my life on hold. And for what? For this. For them to leave me behind without a second thought. For Mark to choose someone else over me. I couldn't allow myself to continue living this way. I had spent decades being the supportive wife, the loyal mother, and the dutiful daughter-in-law. But what had it gotten me? The realization hit me like a cold wave. I had been invisible to them. It was time for me to stop pretending. I was done. I went to my closet and pulled out a small box, my collection of keepsakes from years past. Inside, there were scarves, postcards, dried flowers, and tiny ceramic figurines. Little trinkets Mark had given me over the years. Tokens of his affection that I had treasured, thinking they were proof of his love. But now, holding them in my hands, I realized how insignificant they were. They were just things, small gestures to keep me placated, not true signs of love. One of the scarves caught my eye. It was the one Mark had given me years ago. A soft silk number wrapped around my shoulders as he whispered that fresh flowers wither, but dried ones last forever, just like our marriage. I held it in my hands. And for a moment, I almost laughed. Our marriage had been like those dried flowers, preserved, untouched by time, yet brittle, dry, and collecting dust. It hadn't blossomed, it had just hung there, stagnant, for all these years. Then, I looked at another photo. One that featured Sophia wearing an LV scarf. A brand new, luxurious scarf that was worth more than most of my wardrobe combined. I remembered Mark buying that exact scarf for Sophia, not me, while I was at home cleaning up after everyone. I felt a surge of anger course through me, as if every suppressed emotion from the past years had finally broken free. I picked up my phone and dialed Mark's number. When he answered, his voice was cold and distant, just like it had been the day of the trip. "Hello," he said, as if he hadn't already known who was calling. There was no room in the car for me. But there was room for Sophia? I asked, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. He hesitated for a moment, clearly caught off guard. She was just helping with the arrangements. He replied quickly, trying to brush it off. She's a friend, nothing more. A friend? I repeated, my voice a little louder now. She's more than that, isn't she, Mark? There was a long silence on the other end. He was trying to come up with an excuse. But I didn't care anymore. Do you remember the last time we took a family photo? I continued. You said it was too much hassle. No one wanted to take one with me. But there she is, taking countless photos with you and the kids. Was that the truth, Mark? He stammered, unable to respond. I pressed on, feeling the anger rise within me like a fire. It's funny, isn't it? All these years, I stayed behind to care for your mother. And you couldn't even be bothered to include me in something as simple as a photo. Mark's voice finally broke through the tension. You're being ridiculous. Rachel, it's just a picture. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? But I was done with excuses. I'm not making a big deal. Mark, I'm finally seeing things clearly. The conversation ended shortly after that. But the weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally seeing things for what they were. I needed a break from it all. I needed to do something for myself. So, I booked a ticket to New York. Just for me. No one else. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine. I boarded the train, and for the first time, I allowed myself to relax. I wasn't on a trip because I was expected to cook, clean, or take care of someone. I was going because I deserved it. As the train hummed beneath me, I couldn't help but smile. For the first time in a long time, I was living for me. The days following my decision to go to New York felt like a dream. I wandered through the city, a world of vibrant lights and unfamiliar faces, feeling alive in a way I hadn't in years. I wasn't a wife, a mother, or a caretaker. I was just Rachel. For the first time in ages, I wasn't defined by my roles within a family. I was simply a woman, rediscovering herself in the midst of a busy, bustling city. But as much as I relished the freedom, the weight of the reality back home loomed over me. Mark hadn't taken me seriously when I confronted him. He thought I was overreacting. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't willing to accept his excuses. I was no longer willing to play the role of the dutiful wife who swallowed her bitterness for the sake of family harmony. I had spent too many years living for everyone else. Now, it was time to live for me. I called a lawyer as soon as I got back. My decision clear. The divorce papers would be filed. Mark could no longer expect me to endure the emotional neglect, the manipulation, and the indifference. I wasn't going to let him continue to control my life. The divorce proceedings were long and messy. Mark tried everything to stall the process, using his connections and his influence. But I wasn't going to back down. He hadn't cared about me for years. And now he had the audacity to try to dictate how I would live after the marriage ended. Not anymore. As the days passed, I found myself growing stronger, more certain of my decision. I was no longer afraid to stand up for myself. I wasn't the woman who would quietly accept her fate anymore. I was Rachel, and I would fight for my happiness. And when the court ruling came, it was in my favor. The assets were split evenly. But Mark wasn't done yet. He tried to be spiteful, offering a meager settlement, as though he thought that would be enough to rid him of me once and for all. But I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about that anymore. It was about finally freeing myself from a life of constant sacrifice. As Mark and I signed the papers, I didn't feel relief, not at first. But when the final document was handed to me, I knew that it was the end of a long chapter. No more living in the shadows. No more pretending to be happy in a marriage that had only existed on the surface. I had reclaimed my life. Mark's health began to deteriorate soon after the divorce. He had always been so proud of his status and his intellect. But once that was taken from him, he seemed to crumble. Elena, the woman who had been his companion for so many years, stayed by his side for a while. But she couldn't endure living with a man who had lost everything. One day, she simply left. Just like that. In the end, Mark was alone. His children too wrapped up in their own lives to care for him. Ryan and Lily had long since distanced themselves from the family drama. They had their own worries, their own lives, and so, Mark was sent to a nursing home. A cold, sad ending to a life that had been filled with so much pride and arrogance. As for me, I felt no joy in his downfall. I didn't want to see him suffer. But I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. A sense of peace that I had fought for and won. I wasn't responsible for his misery. I had lived for so long at his mercy. But no longer. It was his turn to face the consequences of his actions. The days after the divorce were peaceful. I moved to a small seaside town, far from the memories of my old life. I rented a small room in a senior living community. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. There, I met women who had their own stories, their own struggles, and we spent our time together in quiet companionship. We played cards, took walks by the ocean, and helped each other with small tasks. It was the simple life. and I found comfort in it. I realized, then, that I had spent so many years worrying about what others thought of me. I had defined myself by my role in a family that never truly saw me. But now, for the first time, I was free to define myself on my own terms. And that freedom was more valuable than any luxury or status could ever be. Life had changed, and so had I. As the days passed in my new life, I began to realize that true happiness isn't found in the approval or love of others, it's found within yourself. For so long, I had defined my worth through the lens of my marriage, my role as a mother, and my devotion to a family that never truly appreciated me. But now, I understood that the only person I needed to seek approval from was myself. I was finally free to live my own life, without the weight of past expectations. The simplicity of my new life by the sea was a stark contrast to the years I had spent chasing approval, always putting others before myself. I had learned the hard way that a life built on sacrifices without reciprocity only leads to resentment and emptiness. But now, with each day that passed, I grew stronger, more self-assured. I filled my time with things that brought me peace, learning new skills, exploring new places, and meeting new people who valued me for who I was, not for what I did for them. One day, as I watched the sun set over the ocean, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I was at peace with my past and excited for the future. My life was mine to control now, and though I had lost a family, I had gained something far more precious, my own freedom. If you found inspiration in this story, make sure to subscribe to our channel to follow along with more life stories. We all deserve to find our own happiness, no matter where the journey takes us.